everyone, it's Andy from Hobby Headquarters. Well, I've got an exciting new kit to share with you guys today, and today I'm going to be showing you and building for you guys the soon-to-be released 1/35th scale Hummel from Tamiya. And the Hummel, basically what it was in World War II, was a German Panzer IV that the Germans had stretched the chassis a little bit and then added a large 150 millimeter artillery piece on top of it. It's a beautiful kit. All new stuff. I shouldn't say that. The only thing that is shared between this and another kit is the Nashorn, because they have that same lower hull. Everything else is completely new on this. In fact, Tamiya went ahead and did the late Hummel, which if they had done the early Hummel, they could have used a lot of the Nashorn parts, but instead they went with the late Hummel, which uses all brand new parts other than that lower hull that I was talking about. It is a fabulous kit to put together. Love doing it. And in fact, here it is right here. Great piece. Lots of diorama possibilities for this particular piece, especially we can open up the back and put shells. There are some figures that are involved with this, and I know everyone says, oh, you don't do your figures. I am not a figure painter. I've said that right from the beginning, but I have a friend of mine that is going to be painting them up, and if time permits, we'll even be doing a video with him showing him actually painting up the actual figures and putting them in here, because we'd like to put this into a diorama like we were talking about, and that's why I have the back open. Also, I'm going to take a couple moments and just talk to you about the book, The Hummel, from Writing Publications. And the reason I bring this up is I use this quite a bit for reference shots when we're building up, painting inside, things like that. These books are still available. I will talk to you those in a minute, and you can tell you where you can get one if you want. But very, very helpful when you're building this particular vehicle. So, let's get started. Okay, since we're going to be working on the brand new Hummel kit from Tamiya, I went into my library and found the Writing publication on the Hummel. And this is a softcover book. It is about 60 pages, 63 pages, full of information and World War II as well as modern day photos of the actual real vehicle. And I thought this would be really, really helpful, especially when you see some of the interior shots in here of what colors to paint things. Plus, I don't know if this is 100% accurate, but I always had to question whether or not the fire extinguishers got painted red. And on this particular one they are. That might be a modern day one, but as we go further on there, you can see there's a bunch of knocked out photos of them working on it. Just some great information, plus these 4 color shots on the end. Now, granted, these are modern day color shots of, you know, like pieces from either museums or something they're using reenactment. But it is the real vehicle, and it's in great condition, and it's great to actually see the, you know, the paint jobs on all of that stuff. So you get all these photos, and I contacted Writing, and they do have this book still available, so you can pick one up on their website. It's only $20 for this book with all this information. So it's on feistbooks.com, which I'll put the web address on the bottom down there. If you're interested in it, especially with the new Tamiya Hummel coming out, this is a really valuable piece of information to get a hold of, especially as you're going to start building and, you know, camouflaging and things like that. Okay, we're going to take a look at the lower hull to start off with. As you can see right here, we have a bathtub style hull with quite a bit of detail already on the outside of the hull. All these little pieces right here, which some companies mold separately, they are actually all attached here and ready to go. Now, you'll notice there's a lot of sub-assemblies that are already glued together here, and the reason I did that was just to kind of speed up, and I was doing a lot of sanding and putting all these basic parts together while I was listening to some podcasts, and I thought, well, this is perfect. I'll just kind of show you like a speeded up version of how all this goes together. But quickly, I've left one of the wheels undone, and you can see there's a poly cap inside each one of them, which we'll put a little glue inside here to make sure we don't lose that poly cap. And once the poly cap is in, I like to go over the entire piece here and sand off any of the little burrs from it, and that way you can knock out 2 at the exact same time. And then there's a little cap right here for the wheel, and that whole wheel is done. Okay, we'll take a look at one of the quick sub-assemblies that I've done up. Because there is a poly cap in there, we can slide these right off the suspension piece. The suspension piece is molded as one piece. In fact, I'll pull this one off and show you. That's exactly how it comes off the sprue, so there's nothing you need to add on to that. So I just built these up, and we have them ready to go. And then we have the same thing happening. There is a polycap inside the idler, and then there'll be a big polycap inside here that will hold the drive sprocket into place once we put the suspension, or the, transmission covers on it. And now what we're going to do is we're going to speed up the film a little bit, and you can watch me put all of these lower suspension parts together and build up basically the lower hull. Okay, now the last thing I need to do for this portion of the build is to get the rear part of the hull on, which we are going to attach right now. And then once that gets put into place, we can go ahead and put the tow hooks on the back as well too. Those need to go in after all of this gets put on. And with this portion here, you can see there is a little groove in here. And this will get placed right up inside there. Now also during the fast motion portion of the build, you may have noticed that a few of the road wheel assemblies didn't want to go in, and I had to replace them. And that is because there's a definite left and right to the road wheel assemblies. And very easy to get them right because there's a large and small pin, and as soon as you line them up, hold it up to it, you can tell right away that it doesn't fit. So just keep that in mind as you're starting to build. Okay, we've just put some glue on the two links of track. So we have this long piece right in here, which is made up of two links. And we'll let that dry for a few minutes. But while we're doing that, we're going to take our other pieces that we set up a few minutes ago. It's probably been about 5 minutes total. And the plastic cement is dried enough that it won't stick to the drive sprocket. And then we can take it and just wrap it right around here and let it form to that position. Always checking to make sure that the glue is not tacky enough that it's going to stick to the drive sprocket. If it is, pull it off and try it again on there. And then what we'll do is we'll let this just set up in the right position the way it is. And that's basically how we will wrap around the entire set of tracks. And if it falls off, no big deal, but that'll give you an idea. So without the camera in the way, then we can come up with this piece right here. So this is one that fits completely on the other side of the vehicle. The only thing we did is we left a little gap in it here that we can glue it together later on after we do all of our painting. And because the drive sprocket and the idler both come off, we can actually even just put the pieces into place once we get everything painted, of course, and then just slide it into place there. So I'm going to go ahead, take a few minutes, and get all of the link and link tracks put together for this side of the vehicle, the one that's up on top here, and we'll come back and move on to the next step. And while the tracks are drying, we can now glue in the floor of the fighting compartment, as well as the two sets of fenders that lock right in and actually lock part of the fighting compartment floor in. And that goes on either side of the hull. And you can see we've got that, and it'll still be easy to get this off with this glued in to get the tracks on later on. So still plenty of room to get it on and off. Okay, we've got some of the sub-assemblies ready to put together, and we have part of the upper part of the hull here that we've gone ahead and attached all the little hooks, the vision ports, as well as the top hatches. And this will just get glued right into place here. In fact, it fits pretty tight just on its own. In fact, you hear that little snap fit. That's popping it in there, but we'll glue that in as well. Once we get that glued in, we've also gone ahead and assembled 2 of the ammo boxes. Those fit right here. Those will get glued into place. And finally, we have the little bit of bracing that goes in the back here, making sure that we got the little nubs, these little nubs right here, sticking towards the back, and that'll duplicate the angle for this plate so we get the proper angle on it. So we want to glue these in first, followed up by this rear portion, and then we can start working on the side panels and what goes into those. Okay, now we're assembling up the sides, and before we start doing any assembly, first of all, you'll notice there are some really large injector pin marks here that we need to get rid of. So starting off on this one right here, we're just going over it with sanding sticks and eliminating those. The ones here on the bottom, you don't really have to worry about because they're getting covered by other stuff, but these ones up on top here, because of where they are, will stick out like a sore thumb. So you want to get rid of those. And once you get that into place, you can put from the outside, or actually from the inside out, you can attach these louvers here, just in there. And then there's also just a couple of other little hooks that we need to put in, and 2 cleaning rods that are going down in the middle here too. So I'm going to get these rest of these injector pin marks cleaned up, and we'll start putting those pieces in. And it's the same thing on both sides with these louvers, and then we'll be able to attach it to the vehicle. Okay, this is what the couple of parts look like mounted into place. There also is an MG34 as well as a barrel cleaning tube, a tube cleaner, and we're going to leave those off. Those are, in my opinion, tools and stuff that need to get put on later on after, because we're going to paint it separately. So we'll put those in the box. We also need to attach the bracket here that is going to secure the side. So a little cement into place there. It also gives it the proper angle when we go to glue the side panel into place. And with that bracket glued in, we can go ahead and glue the side piece on, just like this. A little glue down the seam. And the other wall of the fighting compartment is going to get built basically the same way as this one. So we'll go ahead and assemble that one up, put it together, and glue it into place, and we'll come back and show you what it looks like. Okay, we've got a bunch of the parts here that are going to make up the gun. And one of the reasons we actually delayed the video a little bit on this is because we had heard and actually just received in the mail today, Tamiya is producing a aftermarket piece of the metal gun barrel that is going to go on this kit. So I think that's going to be a lot easier than filling a seam. And not only that too, it's also going to have rifling on the inside of it too. So we'll show you that once we cut open the package and everything. And then quickly, what I'm going to do is we'll just kind of do fast motion for all this. But one quick thing, inside this, there are 2 of these little very tiny poly caps that need to get glued inside these pieces here, and trying to get them to both go in there at once, it's kind of tough. But my recommendation to you is to actually put them on the metal piece that is going to slide inside there, flip it around, put it in just like this, and then glue it together, and it'll make it much easier. And now we're going to show you how the gun goes together. Okay, as we're about to cut off some of the last little parts to assemble the gun, I just thought I would take a second. I get this question quite often. These are the sprue cutters I use right here. These are Tamiya's newest ones. They just came out just a couple months ago, and they're super sharp, almost like razor sharp, and very, very thin sprue cutters. And the stock number is 74123. And I want to show you why. Because they're so thin, you can get into these tight little areas and trim right up alongside the plastic and have virtually no little barb left on it. And because they're so thin and sharp, they have less likelihood to flex the plastic. So when you flex the plastic, you know, sometimes you break the part when you're taking it off. And there it is right there. And there's just that one little tiny piece that, honestly, I think we could probably even get a little bit closer with these. Yep, and see, you can actually go in there and trim off any excess. That's how sharp and fine those are in there. And just a touch with the sanding stick would get it rounded out again. Okay, we have the gun now, but before we install the gun, we want to install this one other little brace up along inside here. It's only on the left side of the vehicle, and those little holes, those little pins right there are for a fire extinguisher that we will put on later on, but want to paint that up separately. Now that we have the gun assembled, you'll notice that we've got a big pin right here and then this little locking mechanism, which is kind of cool because you drop this in and when you turn it, it locks, so the gun is not going to fall out. It's kind of like the way the tank turrets go on. Now with the gun installed, and we can of course use the elevation on it, we have our front shield, which I was just dry fitting this just a few minutes ago, and you guys can't believe how well this fits. Once you get it to line up in here, you can go down the line and kind of just snap it into place. And snap that part right there. And you can see it's ready to go. So all we have to do is apply just a touch of cement down that seam right there, and maybe just a touch to hold it in place. And we have the majority of the body built right now. Now there are of course a couple of little accessories which I won't bore you guys. We'll go ahead and put those on now, like the gun holder, some of the other lights and all that. So I'll get all the last little bit of accessories on, and then we'll come back and show you what it looks like. Okay, we'll first give you a quick little 360. As you notice right here, I've put primer all over the entire vehicle, and that was to check out, see if we had anything that we needed to touch up or fix on it. Everything went together really well. Now, obviously, the tools are all missing on the kit, and a few other little accessories that we will put on afterward. And now that we have the primer on, we're going to go ahead and spray our NATO Black over the entire vehicle. Okay, we've applied the white highlight coat on here now, leaving it on all the panels that we want to be a little bit brighter once we put our first coat of the actual base color on. And for that, we're going to be using Mission Model paints. They're Gelb, number 11, and we're going to put that on right now. the tracks have been sprayed with the NATO Black color to give it a nice base. And next we're going to spray the mixture that you see below on there to give it kind of a little bit of a tarnished look. Okay, we've got all of the camouflage on, as you can see, and we've gone ahead and clear coated the entire model with Tamiya's TS88, which is the flat clear spray. And now what we're doing is just a few decals inside this kit, but we're going to go ahead and put those on right now. I've been lately always forget to put the decals on before I start doing the weathering, and I have to try to get them around what I've already done. So we're going to go ahead and put the decals on right now like we're supposed to. We will let them dry for quite a bit of time. Actually, we're going to put a little bit of Mark Fit Strong on there first to make sure they're adhering really well. And then we'll let them dry really well. Put another coat of clear coat, but this time we're going to use Tester's clear coat because Tamiya says right on their can that the clear coat can sometimes eat the decal, so we want to be very careful of that. So we'll clear coat it once with the Testers. That'll seal it in, and then if we want to, we can put another coat of Tamiya on top of it. That won't damage the decals at that point, but it'll give us a really nice flat effect on it. And then once we get done with all that, we can go ahead and start doing the weathering. You'll also notice too that we've got the tracks in place now. They went on really well. I did break them one time and have to glue them back together, and that was just trying to snap them around in there. So you just got to be a little bit careful when you're doing that. Okay, we've let all of the clear coat dry completely now. And now what I've done is I've gone ahead and done up some of the tools and some of the other accessories. So we have our extra set of tracks. We've kind of weathered and rusted those up. Those are going to get dropped right here in the front, maybe. So those will get slid in right there. We also have our spare wheels. We've weathered those up. And then we have things like the piece of wood that's going to go back here across the back, and that is where they're going to be able to put the shells and stuff up as they're loading them up into the vehicle. Okay, now that the clear coat, second coat of clear coat is dried over the decals, we're now just going to do a little chipping, and we're just taking a little piece of torn foam and using our color, which we'll put on the bottom down here. We're just going to put some small little minor scratches and chips in the paint around areas that you'd imagine things getting dragged across. And you want to put very, very little paint on the foam brush and then blot most of it out on a paper towel, so you only get just the smallest little cracks. Now we're just taking a little bit of Tamiya's black panel liner and just going over some of the little areas, like some of these little rivet heads and bolts and stuff inside of there, and just highlighting them a little bit. And if it comes on a little bit too dark, we can put a little touch of thinner on there and kind of blend it all together in there, just so some of the detail will start to show up. And obviously too, you can start to see we've started to apply some of the other things like the boards in the back here, which we got those by just painting it with desert yellow, and then just putting a wash of Tamiya's brown panel liner over it. We'll do a little weathering on the tracks. I'm just using just basic odorless thinner right now, and we're just wetting down the fronts of the tracks. And then we're taking a little pigment powder, in this case it's light sienna, and we're just going to pack it in on all of the tracks. And of course we're going to do this completely around the entire set of tracks. And it goes on pretty wet and dark right now, but once it dries, it's going to dry more to like the light sienna color that we want out of it. And when that does, we can knock off some of the excess, and then just going to lightly highlight some of the tips of the track pads to give them an effect as if they've been worn. And the last little thing we're going to do now is we're going to put a little grime and just a touch of rust streaks on the side of the vehicle. So we're first putting down a little coat of enamel thinner. That makes it flow a little bit better. And then just any of these areas that we had the heavy chips on it, we can put a little touch of that. And then we're going to take our toothbrush here, and just drag it down lightly. And it'll just create a few little streaks. We're not going to go heavy on the weathering on this particular vehicle. I want it to look like it not completely beat up. And hopefully you can see on the bottom down here how the, better not grab it there, how the stuff is starting to dry. And when it gets to a certain point, we'll be able to go on here, any of these dry areas, we can knock it off, the excess off the wheels, but remains on the tracks. And if we want to brush some of the edges off here too, take the excess off there. And here we are. Here we have our completed model. And I'll quickly go over just a few of the things that we did to it to get it to this final stage. As you can see, as we go around in there, we've painted up some of the ammunition to put inside, kind of stacked all over the place. The Hummel used 2-part ammunition. We also, you can see the red fire extinguisher we put inside there, as well as the red and white ranging poles. And we kind of dirtied and chipped those up a little bit to make them look like they've been in the field and worn a little bit. We also took our metallic powder and lightly went around all the edges of the bolts on the track just to give it a little bit of shine, as well as the teeth on the drive sprocket. And finally, we also just took a little bit of the light sienna dust and kind of just brushed it lightly over some of the top surfaces, just to kind of dull it down and give it a little bit of a dirty effect. Also putting a little bit more inside the fighting compartment to make it look like it's also been used very well. Now, I have a friend of mine who is painting up the figures for this piece, because we would like to put this in a diorama, and if time permits, we even will have a video of him showing how to paint the figures. We're hoping to do that in the next week or two. But the kit overall, as you would imagine, it's a brand new Tamiya kit, so it goes together just the way you would expect it to go together. Everything fits perfectly. It's only about probably about 2 or 3 days of actual construction time, because there's so few parts and everything fits so tightly. The main reason this video was delayed a little bit was we were just waiting on the metal barrel, and having that rifled metal barrel really looks nice on it here. And you can see that with the gun can be put into different angles. We've got it in kind of a firing position right now, but a very, very nice piece. Now, the kit is due out in, I believe, late June. Has a retail of $66. The barrel's about $10 more if you want to add that to it, and it will be out the same time as the actual kit will be. So I want to thank you guys as always for watching, and please stay tuned because we have many more videos coming.